Jim Crow was a system of semi-slavery, and it lasted up until at least 1967 with the Loving versus Virginia case. But more than likely, it lasted through the 70s. And this is the time where we saw the inception of the psychological war on poverty and Lyndon B. Johnson's creation of the Great Society. So this war on poverty, it did one thing effectively that slavery couldn't psychosomatically accomplish by placing a wedge in the complete family structure and a wedge that is yet to be mended. So during slavery, and yes, black and white and Native American people were enslaved, and they were enslaved on the same plantations. And I know this not by research, well, I guess by research, but from my own family history that we can trace back to North Carolina and Tennessee, and we find evidence of this exact same thing. But a parent, at this time, they left their family by force, not by choice. So they could be sold away, which is, if you are into psychology, it is a form of, I guess you can call it high intensity punishment, based on the way that I analyze it from the slave psychology standpoint. And because of the overall lack of power and unity, like the men, they could do, well, not just the men, any of them, they could do very little about it, but I guess sulk, and hope one day that they could work to pay for their own freedom and eventually the freedom of their families. Now, under welfare, this leaving of the household concept started to become more voluntary because, just like the Willie Lynch letter states, and tries to create, and that's a reading I suggest. I guess I'll put that on Canvas so you can read it if you want to. The Great Society helped produce dependently independent women by throwing them into a frozen psychological state of independence. Now, one of the goals of the Great Society was to reduce dependency, which theoretically means writing past discrimination in terms of economic opportunities. Although this may have been Johnson's aim, structural forces and higher entities had different ideas about what reducing dependency meant. So in principle, reducing dependency signified reversing the position of male leadership roles within the household. And that is also part of how, I'm not going to get into it deeply, but that is also part of how feminism is connected to the creation of the welfare state. Not just that, but like everything that I said prior, feminism did play a role in creating this dependently independent woman by throwing them into a frozen psychological state of independence, just like the Willie Lynch letter. Reducing dependency, it only means reducing dependency of women and making them independent of men. However, all right, and this is the key part, they are to remain dependent on the government's domestic programs, thus driving a wedge into the family structure, but psychologically perceiving, they start to perceive themselves as independent. And this is kind of what you see happening, or the goal of Claudine, where this is what they are trying to, like the system, this overall system is trying to make her independent against men, but dependent on the system. And the system is called Mr. Welfare. And I think I'll place the song by Gladys Knight on Canvas as well, if you want to view that. And because you could also, if you're doing this topic, you could use that song as a source as well. Anyway, by penalizing Medicaid, TANF, which is temporary assistance for needy families, heavily taxing marriage and work, whereupon you will see pay raises result in the loss of $1 or more in benefits. The railroad tracks to a frozen psychological state of independence were then laid. Also, at least 15 to 20% of marriages have decreased due to the war on poverty. But some scholars, such as Charles Murray, they have the decline rate as high as 50%. Now, the welfare in the Great Society's restructuring of the meaning of dependency is clarified by this following wage example that I came up with. But it's like accurate. It's like based on real persons, a real event. So now you have a person, let's say a person is making about $2.75 over the minimum wage, and this person has 5 kids, and we're going to say the year is maybe 1994. This person would see a negative ripple effect that not only reiterates dependency on the system and independence from the man, but stimulates the poverty cycle, right? So the government's role is to, in the war on poverty, is to place man against woman rather than have man and woman coexist on an equal level. But this equal level also means that there are still certain gender roles that are defined. So not like defined in the past where you have like all of this gender oppression, but defined in a way that creates this psychological and family and community balance. The federal minimum wage in 1994 was $4.25. And as you see, it hasn't gone up much now because the federal, not the individual states, is $7.25. Anyway, at $4.25, this places the person's wage-based pay with that increase still will be lower than our current and out-of-date federal minimum wage of $7.25, like I just stated. Now, if this person makes $1 or even $3 more above the qualification threshold, then said person, that takes said person from like a lowly $7 an hour to somewhere between $8, $10, which, because the minimum wage is set so low, it appears on the surface like an excessive hourly rate, like this person is doing good. But because of their wage increase, the said person could have all or a huge portion of their benefits, such as food stamps and WIC, eliminated, because according to the state of Texas, this person would have then been making too much income to qualify for state assistance. The federal government at this time, too, key and important, they were engaged in 2 simultaneous wars in the 60s through the 70s. And that is, you got the war on poverty and you have the Vietnam War. Both wars that are unwinnable, but undertaken with, hidden motives. So one of the sort, Diane Hugh, and this is a 2017 estimate. So in 2017 dollars, Diane Hugh and her colleagues, they estimated that the government dedicated approximately And this is based on the money that was given to the Vietnam War. In 2017 dollars, it would have been $802 billion to the Vietnam War in military operations, $1.8 billion to Thailand in alliance assistance. They also gave $500 million, which has also been unpaid to Cambodia. So Cambodia never had to pay it back, according to Hugh. And over $69 billion to South Korea. So much of the money that's spent on welfare, unlike war, does not reach poor dependents, or the people that it's supposed to reach, and the poor dependents who need it the most. And technically, what these programs were created for, and as many people from the middle class also receive certain benefits, according to the scholar Joy Moses. Moses's research also shows that at least 39% of Americans receive benefits in which they paid for, including those in the lower class, right? So if you're paying for these benefits, technically it's not welfare per se. Conservatives, what they do is they push the narrative that welfare is only received by those who do not work, when that, of course, does not project the full picture. Because what they do is they also use euphemisms to deflect the fact that welfare has no class boundaries, right? So you have corporate welfare that exists in various forms, and corporate welfare, of course, is given more pleasant names. So, for instance, subsidies, right? So this is your media propaganda euphemisms. Subsidies, welfare. Federal tax breaks, welfare. Mortgage deductions, welfare. Business grants and loans, welfare and welfare. Offloading of costs, welfare. And then what you saw under President Obama when they saved the automobile industry, bailouts, welfare. And all of these names have a nicer ring than welfare or food stamps. So ultimately, welfare benefits for the underclass are kept just low enough to ensure dependency and continued poverty, whereas welfare benefits for the rich ensure survivability and economic prosperity.